Week 16 in the books. The boys are going to talk a little off-season moves, some takeaways from this season, some disappointments in the season, and most importantly, we're going to give you our best bets of the week. Look forward to one more episode next week where we're going to talk about playoffs and give you guys a lot more insight on who we feel is going to win the Super Bowl and how we feel each game is going to go. But for this week, it's just another us talking about how we feel about the direction the NFL is going. All right, enjoy and have a great New Year's.
It's the Marty Party podcast, presented by 4011 Sports.
So let's revisit a topic that we went over a couple weeks ago where we listed job openings. And I want to give you guys my final rankings before the official firing, what is it called? The Black Monday,
yeah.
But I'm going to give you guys my rankings, and then I'm gonna give you guys a chance to respond. But I got 5 job openings right now, and I'm going to list them off in where the best position I think is to the worst. I'm going to start with number 1, the Detroit Lions. I know that this seems like a job that people go and just get fired every 3 years. I feel like every 3 years they're looking for a new head coach. But this team has a lot of potential. They have a quarterback who's still relatively in his prime and still can do everything you need him to do with Matt Stafford. And going into this year, again, they're going to have a good draft pick, decent cap space. They'll be able to make moves. And, when you're becoming a head coach of an NFL team, your goal isn't to win the Super Bowl year one. It's to just show improvement. And with the way the Lions have looked the last 7-8 weeks, basically them just showing up on Sunday would be an improvement. So I think that that's probably the most attractive job. I'm going to go over with my second most attractive job with Atlanta. Same thing, you get a veteran quarterback, a guy that knows what to do. You have a offense that has more than enough firepower to be relevant in the league. And all you really have to do is clean up your defense. And I think that's easier said than done, but certainly with early draft picks on top of, spending money or even making trades, it's very possible. And just like the Lions, Atlanta has looked horrible this year. Anything, and definitely underperforming. So anything, that looks like a relatively decent football team next year, I think the coach would get a lot of praise. I'm going to move on to this one. And this is where I think it's tough. I think I have on my list Texans at 3, but I'm going to move it to the Jets at 3. And the Jets, I think you're going to have a second overall pick in the draft. That's a really good pick. Hopefully the team decides to not move forward with a quarterback and they keep Sam Darnold for at least the next 2 years while they build around him. Worst case scenario is you build around Sam Darnold for 2 years. He still stinks. And then you drop a new quarterback in a better roster with better draft picks. I don't think there's a lot of it's not a bad spot at all. Also, if you're a head coach, you're really not going to get quit on after your first year. So if Sammy D fails, you're relatively absolved from it for at least a year or two. And then when you draft your new quarterback, so you'll have a good chance to turn that franchise around. So that's almost a guaranteed 3 years of having a job without any heat on you to get fired. Now I'm going to move into the Texans at 4. This is a job I can see somebody getting fired really quickly, whoever they hire. The team has no first-round draft pick this year. I don't even think they have a second-round draft pick this year. They have an aging J.J. Watt. They have a quarterback that's getting paid $44 million a year or whatever he's getting paid. So that's going to be a monster cap issue to deal with. I don't think any team has spent more money on players going into this year than the Houston Texans. Their wide receiver situation is potentially going to be a problem for years to come with the injuries that they constantly get and the fact that their best receiver this year got busted with PEDs. I don't think that this is an attractive job, and I think whoever takes the job is going to have a lot of pressure to perform immediately. People are going to say, well, you have Deshaun Watson and you play in the AFC South, which for the last decade has been a relatively weak division. So I think that is the fourth worst job, very close with the Jets. And then number 5, and you're going to hear it everywhere, people are going to say that the Jacksonville Jaguars are the most attractive position. I don't think they are. Let me go over a couple things with you. The last 2 weeks, they've had quarterbacks throw over 200 yards. Mike Lennon did it a lot worse last week where he threw 2 interceptions. They still lost 41-14 or whatever it was. The week before, where you had Gardner Minshew, had 0 turnovers. The team gave up 40 points. They're last in the league in rush defense, or 29th in the league in rush defense. They're 26th in the league in pass defense, and 32nd in the league in just overall defense. And what are you going to use your first-round pick on? It's a quarterback. I don't think that the team's biggest issue right now is the play out of the quarterback. It's the play out of their defense, which can't stop anything. So what are you going to do? You're going to replace a quarterback with 200 yards and get them somebody that can put up 270 yards. And instead of losing 41-14, you're going to lose 41-21. I don't understand what the hype is. I get that you have the ability to draft the number 1 pick overall, but let me know when the last time the number 1 pick team was able to turn around and hire a great coaching candidate. It really doesn't happen. I mean, Cliff Kingsbury wasn't the hottest name in sports. He was just fired from his college team. They really, if I was a smart coach, the last place I'd want to go is to a team with a 1-15 roster because I'm getting a prospect. No other sport does that happen. Like basketball, coaches don't run over to the number 1 pick because anyone's coming. So I'm going to pass it along to you guys and see where you guys think about my rankings, if you think I'm wrong anywhere. But really the one I'm hung up on most is this overhyping of the Jaguars team.
You gave us a lot to chew on there, Marty. Okay, I guess I'll start with your number 1 team, the Lions. I don't think they're the best job. You mentioned cap space. They have no wide receivers under contract. They don't have a running back. They don't have a defense. They spent the 3rd overall pick on a cornerback who has not played well. I do think it's an attractive job. I just wouldn't put it number 1. Who did you have second?
Second, I had Atlanta.
Atlanta. Ooh, yeah, I don't like that one either. I mean, I like it because you can draft a quarterback and let him sit. You can let him redshirt a year, which I've always been about. I mean, I know it's not about with the current NFL. They do have wide receivers, but they have no defense. I like Atlanta because you can draft somebody and let him sit behind Matt Ryan for a year. I guess the same goes for Matt Stafford, but they don't have high enough draft pick, I think, to get a quarterback. And then after that, you had the Jets.
Jets.
So I think that's about a good spot for them. What makes it less attractive is that you have to make a quarterback decision, right? And you do not know the organization's opinion on Sam Darnold. Like, it doesn't make sense to keep the guy if you're only just going to give him a year, right? You can't go into this with half intention. You have to go with full steam ahead, right? What the Ravens did with Lamar Jackson, you have to go all in, build around your quarterback. So I'm okay with that one. 4th, you have
Texans.
That's a good spot for them. But I think I might even put them ahead of the Lions. You have a young quarterback. You're right.
But there's no draft picks.
I guess that's what
there's no draft picks.
You have no capital.
There's
Bill O'Brien hurt them, man.
There's no way out besides waiting a year or 2. And it's the same. They're in the same.
Unless you nail your draft. You remember the Seattle Seahawks draft in, I think, 2011 or 2012? They got, like, Russell Wilson, Richard Sherman, Malcolm Smith. They got Bobby Wagner, right? So I would say the Texans need that kind of draft where you draft half your team, they all become all pros, right? They need that kind of draft.
But it's going to be tough when your first pick is in the 3rd round.
Exactly. You just have to nail it.
And nailing a 3rd round pick means that you basically get a starter.
3rd, 4th, and 5th. That's what the Seahawks did. That's the only reason they're good right now.
Absolutely.
But the odds of that happening are so low that you could use that argument for any of the other 5 teams on the list. That if you just hit all your picks, the other nice thing about the Jets is they also have
A lot of
Seattle's
picks.
picks,
They have a lot of picks.
and there's no pressure on winning.
If Sam Darnold is the quarterback next year for the New York Jets, they're by far and away the best destination to go to.
For sure.
They have the
He's
best.
23.
They have the best defense out of all these teams. They've got a young receiving core.
Mm-hmm.
They do need to figure out who to play at running back besides an ancient Frank Gore. Ty Johnson's looked fine.
So give him the ball more. Oh my God! I can't start. Adam.
He looks good.
Oh my
I think you can probably take a running back in this draft in the middle, second, third, fourth round, and he'll be very productive. You got to go Penei Sewell, second overall pick.
Love it. Terrace Marshall, second one.
I think if anything
Or
they'll
a
trade.
running back.
I think they'll trade out of that pick, and we're really gonna dive into
Don't think
teams'
so.
off-season moves in about 5 weeks when the playoffs has run its course.
Well, I still think they're going to take a quarterback at 2.
And I think
I
if
hate
they
it, but
do
they're
take
gonna.
a quarterback at 2, it becomes the least attractive spot, depending on the return they get for Sammy D.
And they're going to get nothing. Jags at 5. I don't hate it, but I also don't love it.
This defense is terrible.
It's a bad defense, but also Gardner Minshew and Mike Glennon couldn't move the ball. Like, a lot of those stats that you're giving me are garbage time stats, you know? Like, okay, Gardner Minshew didn't turn the ball over, but if he throws it like 2 yards, you know, guy gets tackled. He throws it 3 yards, guy gets tackled, you know, minus 1 yard run, 3 and out. So that kind of offense isn't going to win you games. You get a guy like Trevor Lawrence who can stretch the field, actually make you use your talented young wide receiver core, you know, make James Robinson even more effective than he already is. I think that Trevor Lawrence, what he can bring to the offense will definitely help the defense. If you can control the ball, your defense will help. I mean, how long were the Jaguars on the field for? I mean, it's not like the Jacksonville Jaguars are offense is putting together 11-minute drives.
They're not putting in ridiculous drives, but let me tell you who they're passing better than this year. So they have the 13th worst yards per game passing, but here's the teams that they're ahead of this year. They're ahead of the Browns, the Bengals, the Titans, the Giants, Patriots, Ravens, Jets, Miami. They're even ahead of, and they're even ahead of Washington. Now,
But
a
that's
couple
out
of
of
those,
necessity,
a
right?
couple of those teams.
You have to pass when you're down 40-14.
But you're also outpassing teams that are decent in the NFL.
And that's my point. Like,
Your-
they're
your
good
num-
enough.
Your
to
number one
control
problem
the
is
clock.
defense.
No, they're good enough to control the clock. Baker Mayfield doesn't have to throw the ball, right? If they're just running it down your throat.
But they also have
Dolphins don't have to throw the ball if they're playing good defense. So it goes both ways, right? You don't have to throw the ball if you're good everywhere else.
They also-
But if you throw the ball well, it can help other teams. Or other areas of your team. My apologies.
so they have the 26th worst offense in the NFL and the 32nd ranked defense in the NFL. If that is not the worst location to end up this offseason, I don't know what is. I mean, you can't get any worse at defense than they are.
You can.
You've already locked into the fact that your first round pick is not going to solve any of those issues besides from maybe keep the defense off the field slightly longer by getting a first down or two.
That definitely helps.
It helps a little bit, but
No, it helps a lot.
it's not the difference between being 32nd and 15th.
I think it is, for sure.
I would disagree with you there, but let's move on to our next topic. We're gonna hit on some takeaways this year. Going into Week 17, we're gonna cover a lot of the playoff stuff for next week. So this week, we're just gonna take a brief recap of what we saw in the NFL, little notes, and the first note I want to get into is the emergence, which is something I predicted a long time ago, of Josh Allen really coming in statistically as a top 5 quarterback. I think he'll be number 3 or number 4 in MVP voting this year, which is quite the jump for him, and the emergence of the Buffalo Bills becoming maybe the second or third best team in the AFC. What do you guys think about that?
I think that your faith in Josh Allen was totally unfounded. He didn't show anything in the first 2 years. that would make you think he would jump from
Athleticism and big arm.
He didn't have his best completion percentage was 59. He didn't even hit 59, and this year he's completing 69. You can't say, okay, I called it. His completion percentage jumped 10 points. That's a lot. Yardage up 1,300. Touchdowns up 14.
It's not a lot when you look at the moves that they did. Getting him Stephon Diggs, who's number 1 in the NFL in receiving, certainly helps. The guy averages a ton of catches a game, gives him a legitimate outlet, and the
You can't tell me a number 1 receiver is the difference between 59 and 69% completion. It's not.
it certainly
Depends on
helps.
his target share. We would have to look deeper into his target share. If he's getting a certain amount of targets, that could swing that.
I would definitely say it's because of Brian Dabble. I mean, he's been amazing what he's done. You know, he was on the Patriots for a while. He was in the Alabama receiver
course he was.
coach. Yeah.
Of course he was on. Of course he was on New England.
Of course he's on the New Belichick's coaching tree. You know, is
Cleaned
starting
up.
to look better.
Cleaned up.
I think Brian Dabble is going to be a hot head coach candidate. He should be getting looks from everywhere. Seeing what he did with Josh Allen. Okay, Josh Allen was just oozing potential when he came out, right? But I never thought he could turn that into what he's done now. He is the second quarterback in NFL history to throw for more than 30 touchdowns and rush for 8 touchdowns in a season or more. The other?
So Jets coach?
AFC incest would be in full swing there.
So the next thing I wanted to look at is this. There was a lot of head coaches that were hired in the last 2 years, and I think almost all of them, besides Adam Gase, were pretty good hires. Flores over in Miami. I said it last year, kind of tongue-in-cheek. I thought he should have been the coach of the year just by turning a roster around the way they did and beating the Patriots in Week 17. You have Sean McDermott, who, once again, Buffalo, not great. Now he's over there. Really changes the tide of things. I'm not sold on Joe Judge yet. I'm not willing to give him the seal of approval where, oh, wow, he's going to be there for a long time. But just those two coaches, they're going to make Bill Belichick's life a little difficult out there in New England, where they've added some stability and some success on two franchises that
Desperately
needed it. And you see right now with the Patriots record the way it is, that's been a big problem for them.
Scoring points has been a big problem for New England.
Yeah, they need a quarterback. I mean, I still think Belichick's good. He's doing things that he's still good at game planning, right? But the execution doesn't always come together, especially because Cam Newton. Oh,
But yeah.
He's so bad.
The Dolphins, Brian Flores was a great hire. I loved him in New England. Very sad that he left. Just everyone is plucking New England coaches, and they're just praying that they become anything like Bill. And Brian Flores is by far the closest thing that you've seen to Bill Belichick out of this tree.
I like that. The next thing I wanted to touch on, the first 3 quarterbacks that went in this draft, I think have been all exceeded expectations. And I'm going to slow you down because I know you're going to go after Tua, but I didn't even think he didn't
can't
even
say exceeded expectations.
He wasn't even supposed to play this year.
Says who?
Says
a lot of people.
Says a lot of people.
He passed every single physical at the combine. You don't take a guy 5 if you don't think he's playing this year.
Of course you do,
I-
because
You don't.
that's what they did.
What's the last quarterback that's been taken top 5 and hasn't played?
That's a good question.
Exactly. You can't name one because there isn't one.
I would have benched Tua all this year.
I wouldn't have played him all year.
That was
Because he
my.
doesn't look good.
No.
It's not
no.
good. First of
I
all, he
said
doesn't
it-
look good. He's 10 touchdowns to 2 interceptions on the season.
Right, and
That's-
his team was losing games badly until Ryan Fitzpatrick just came in and saved his bacon.
And also, he won games because he doesn't turn the ball over. That
No, he
Ryan
won
Fitz.
games because of his defense. He
Ryan-
did not. Tua Tagovailoa is by far the worst of the top 3. By far.
I'm
He did not exceed expectations.
I
Gotta
think-
push back on that for sure.
He certainly did because he wasn't supposed to play at all this year.
Disagree again.
Joe Burrow came in, 13 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. I think that's pretty good stats on a team that had the number 1 overall pick. And Justin Herbert looks very good, 28 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, 4,000 passing yards in 14 games. That's really good. The problem with the first pick in the draft, and the 6th pick in the draft is the win-loss record, which I know Brian is not a fan of judging by quarterbacks. I think it's very important. I don't think that
Quarterbacks are not.
I don't think
wins are not a quarterback
Ryan
stat.
Fitzpatrick doesn't get the contract he gets from the Tennessee Titans if he comes in and holds the same record that Marcus Mariota did. I think teams certainly value Ryan Tannehill.
I was about to say.
What I say, Fitzpatrick?
You did say Fitzpatrick.
But he doesn't get the contract that the Titans gave him. Quarterbacks all over the place are valued at wins and losses.
It's different. The team looks so much worse with Mariota compared to Tannehill. Just kind of like how the Dolphins look so much worse with Tua than they do with Ryan Fitzpatrick. So in this situation,
they had Fitzpatrick
Mariota
last year.
would be Tua.
They had Fitzpatrick last year and they stunk.
Yeah, but they look better this year.
They
the
look
team
significant.
got better.
The team got
better.
The team-
you can't say
the team
it's
had
Tua.
two-
Tua made them better.
The team had 2 first-round picks. I think that your hate on Tua Tagovailoa is unfounded.
It's
They also
totally
signed half of the Pats defense this
They
past
signed
offseason.
so many people that Brian Flores already is familiar with, fits right into his scheme. So his defense already got better.
Coaches pull guys from their former team all the time, and it doesn't work. Look at the Lions.
Yeah, that just makes Matt Patricia
Matt Patricia's just a bad coach.
He's a terrible coach.
Yeah.
But just to say, oh well, he has people he's familiar with, and now they're going to be good. That's
No,
just
no, no.
But they are better than they were last year, and the only difference between last year and this year on the defense is that now he has players he had when he was in New England. So then you can say yes.
And,
that is why
and,
they're better.
and Xavier Howard's probably the
Also,
top
Xavier.
5 cornerback in
He's
the
been
NFL.
there. He's been there.
And now
Yeah.
he's now his name. He's a household name now.
He's been a household name. He was the highest paid cornerback when he got signed, dude.
Yeah, but he wasn't on the same level as Gilmore and all those people. No one held him to
No
that.
one talked about Stephon Gilmore until he won DPOY. Come on.
He was.
Xavier Howard and Stephon Gilmore were in the same conversation before Stephon Gilmore won Defensive Player of the Year.
They were not.
Yeah, yes,
They
they were.
They were not.
Do you remember Stephon Gilmore in Buffalo?
Yeah, he was good. And when the
No.
Patriots signed him, everyone agreed that was a great signing for the Patriots. I think it was the same year they let Revis go. Was that correct? He never played with Revis. I think he came in as Revis departed
I think
for the JETS, and everyone thought that was a good move. I think he also came in the year Malcolm Butler left. He must have came in the year they. So
2014.
So he did.
Because he left Buffalo the year Sean McDermott was hired and they drafted Tre'Davious White.
So let's move on to the next takeaway. I know that we have a little bit of a disagreement on that. I will tell you this: if Tua Tagovailoa comes in next year and looks the way he does this year, I would be disappointed. But to say a guy who comes off of a major, hip and ankle surgery that he came off of?
The ankle's before, it's just hip.
But
The ankle's not even.
But
in
the ankle,
conversation.
people were still thinking that. Remember in the before the draft, people were thinking he should have went back to college for one more year to heal.
Literally never heard that.
What a stupid.
I don't know who said that, but
It was all over. People said, "Oh, he should go
No
back
way.
to college for a year to heal." He wasn't even supposed to play this year. I don't
That's
know.
not true. You keep saying that, dude. That's not true at
He
all.
wasn't. He wasn't. You can
there-
go back on the tape and watch
He
it.
was
were-
definitely expected to play this year.
No, there were definitely
No,
people who said
there was
he
a
wasn't.
majority of people. A
There were
majority of
people who
analysts.
said he wasn't going to play.
Thank you, Party. Thank you,
not
Party.
buying it.
Next
Just because
thing.
you're not buying
Yeah,
it.
just because one person in the world doesn't buy it. Okay, so Aaron Rodgers is a good quarterback. I think that
Shocking.
Yep.
you go out. It's almost like and I hate that Green Bay gets rewarded for it. You go out and you draft
A quarterback.
quarterback in the
trade
first-
Up. You trade up. You don't just draft him. You trade up to go get him.
So, from what I remember in the draft, the Green Bay Packers hadn't drafted an offensive skilled position player in the first round in like 11 years. And then they decided they're finally in a good position to do it. You have Aaron Rodgers coming off a season where he went, what did they go last year? 13-3 or something like that? First round bye.
Sounds usual.
Gets
for
to the
Packers.
NFC Championship just to lose to San Fran. And everyone goes into the offseason saying, well, the reason that they didn't really compete against San Fran is because there's no skill position. And then everyone's like, oh, obvious decision now. Go out and draft a guy. I believe Justin Jefferson was. Oh no, he wasn't.
No, he wasn't on the board.
He went a little early, but they passed on some offensive weapon. Brandon Ayuk they could have gotten. Oh no, he went a pick before Jordan Love too.
I thought they were going for T. Higgins.
T. Higgins would have been a good pick, right?
Great pick.
No one would
I thought
have.
they were going for receiver for sure.
Michael Pittman Jr. was still there. DeAndre Swift was still there. But no, they decide we're going to go pick Jordan Love. Guy doesn't play, barely even suits up, because they're looking at the future. Even though quarterbacks in the NFL right now, you have one guy playing at 44, another guy playing at 41. Mike Glennon's like a backup, and he's like 1,000 years old too, from what I remember. So there's really no time on Aaron Rodgers to retire.
That's what we were saying when he was drafted, right? Like, assuming Aaron Rodgers just stays par for, even if he kept what he was doing last year, 26 touchdowns, 4 picks. If he kept doing that for the remainder of his contract, and then he just walks, you would have to already pick up Jordan Love's 5th-year option before he even touches the field.
Yeah, and obviously you wouldn't do that. Like, I know when the Giants drafted the guy, Giants quarterback, Daniel Jones, and Dave Gettleman comes out and says, oh, he might not play for the first 3 years because Eli's here. Everyone kind of knew, listen, we need to move on from Eli Manning.
Everyone but the ownership.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
But this one, it's like, you might not see the field for 5 years, and first-round quarterbacks value plummets after a year, regardless of what's done on the field. I mean, like, you had 1 year of Josh Rosen, and he couldn't get a first-round pick back in return. It's just quarterbacks' values don't hold. Dwayne Haskins literally got cut. But Aaron Rodgers comes out, rewards his team for moving on or attempting to move on from him, and pretty much put up an MVP season. I think this is the closest MVP race I've seen in my life, because I'm not even sure who I would give it to, because Aaron Rodgers has significantly less interceptions but 1,000 less yards passing, and Patty Mahomes is going to end the season 14-1 with a game that he sits on the bench for week 16 or week 17. So it's going to be a really close race. I won't be offended with whoever wins. And I think the last 2 takeaways I have for positive takeaways, Dolphins and Bills this year. And I know we kind of touched on it before, but 2 really good teams. Both Dolphins coming on a little earlier than everyone thought. If you agree with Brian where you think that the quarterback play was a little disappointing, then you're going to be...
Bro, you said he exceeded expectations.
He did.
He did not.
If you don't, we're gonna move on from it. But if you don't play, if you're not supposed to play a game, and then you come in the NFL and throw 10 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, I would be pretty happy with that.
You know why they weren't sure he was gonna play?
Because of his hip.
Because of COVID.
No, it had nothing to do with COVID.
You couldn't train with him. You had a limited off-season program to be with your players. You had 2 weeks. He didn't have a training camp.
He didn't run in the combine. He didn't do anything in the combine but get medically cleared.
Because you couldn't do anything.
But anyway, you have a monster hatred of Tua Tagovailoa.
Because you have a monster boner for Tua Tagovailoa.
That's not even true. I'm just saying that he threw 10 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. But the last one. This one, I can't remember. When was the last time a heavily regarded pass rusher actually comes into the NFL and plays well? Like, Jadeveon Clowney, everyone was talking, best pass rusher ever. Comes in, has like 4 sacks. On the other side, he has J.J. Watt. Chase Young comes in the NFL. Chase Young's probably a top 10 pass rusher this year already. And that defensive line he's working with is young studs all the way through.
Yeah.
And, that Washington football team is going to be trouble in a couple of years if they can get their quarterback situation figured out. But, that's the takeaway I have. We finally see a pass rusher come in and exceed expectations. What do you guys think?
Yeah, no, the only other guy I can think of is Khalil Mack. He was in the same class as Jadeveon Clowney, and he exceeded expectations in Oakland.
And where was he picked in that draft? Fourth. So that's pretty good.
It's the top 5 pick.
But still not the best pass rusher in that draft, because you had Aaron Donald come out the same draft.
Tough.
Isn't that? I mean, he's legitimately the best pass rusher in the draft, and he was taken early.
I mean,
I can't remember the last time that happened.
I can't think of another top 5 defensive lineman picked
Mario
that's
Williams.
been good in the last 10 years.
Was he? 10 years, more than 10
He
years
was in
ago?
the same draft as Vince Young and
Mario
Reggie
Williams
Bush.
was like 2006.
He would have been retired by now.
Yeah, like he's gone.
Recently, definitely not.
Like Solomon Thomas, bum.
Bad.
Deion Jordan, bum.
I mean, I guess Khalil Mack's the closest, but he was a question mark too. Like you didn't
Big,
even hype him up.
huge
too.
question mark because of his
he went to
size.
Buffalo. And he went to Buffalo.
And his size. He was a small guy.
Chase Young has been everything the Washington football team wanted and more.
I mean, last week against Carolina, he was on the field for 93% of his snaps. I mean, he's almost I think that's pretty much every down.
Yeah,
you got it, because I think they subtract out punts, so it's a pretty impressive snap count. Has 5.5 sacks on the season, 3 forced fumbles, so and a touchdown on the season. More touchdowns than Jordan Love.
This guy's trying to show me an article saying Tua wasn't going to play because of injury.
In
the article, they literally say he's healthy and he can play.
People said he wasn't going to play, though.
Yeah.
Because they were good without...
They weren't good.
I mean, okay, I'm not saying anything about how the team played. All I'm saying is there were people saying he wasn't going to play that year. That's all I was saying. And people did say it.
So you're telling me all headlines that you see now are indicative of what they mean? Because literally in that same article that says, will he play? Oh, he's healthy and he can play.
I mean, it literally says Tua Tagovailoa not likely to start in 2020 NFL season. Yeah, that's what it says.
And they started the season 1-3 with their only win coming against the Jaguars, who by the way only had one win on the season.
Good win.
But and then they go against the Jets and they win 24-0 and they beat the 49ers, which was a surprise until you look at the 49ers team.
It's a good 49ers.
And then
it's not a bad 49ers.
Tua comes in, beats the Rams, beats the Cardinals, beats the Chargers, loses to the Broncos, and then beats the Jets and gets bailed out against the Bengals.
I'll agree with you. The main difference between him and Ryan Fitzpatrick just doesn't turn the ball over.
And I think with a good defense, it's big.
So big.
I don't think he's playing an MVP level. I don't even think he's playing top 20 quarterback level.
He's a game manager right now.
Right now.
Now he's managing the game, which is good. But as you said, next year would be disappointed.
Would be very disappointed.
If it's the same.
Because he had 94 yards and has to get bailed out. But also good on Brian Flores, great coach.
Oh, for sure.
Doesn't sink the ship because he's scared to rattle his quarterback's
I love that.
head. I don't understand why more coaches don't do it. Like the Eagles go out and take the drastic approach of benching Carson Wentz, and that's actually going to take me to our next point. Our disappointments this season. I'm going to start with Carson Wentz. Horrible. As bad as the season can go with someone, I would actually argue that if Carson Wentz went out and like broke his elbow or something like that and missed the entire season, it would have done more good for him than what this season did. Just showing his inability to do anything productive. Basically, the last 2 years he's been horrible.
I think last year he was good in terms of advanced stats and with what was around him. You know, he didn't have any receivers last year. But
you say that, but Nelson Aguilar's over there putting up a ton of yards in Oakland.
That's true. That's a good point.
It's almost like you have to make your receiver. Almost like Devontae Adams isn't the best receiver in football, but because he has the best quarterback in football. I mean, really, when you look at wide receiver production, it's directly related to the quarterback. A.J. Brown played with Marcus Mariota, and I think 3 of the first 6 weeks didn't have a catch. Now A.J. Brown's over 1,000 yards. Corey Davis went 4 years with Marcus Mariota and looked like a draft bust, and this year is probably going to be the highest paid wide receiver free agent.
But I think Carson Wentz is broken. And I say that because, okay, they have the most offensive line combinations in the NFL so far this year, right? And I remember watching a game, and the pass rush was coming, but his offensive line was holding up, right? But you could tell. He took the ball, thought they were coming, and started running. Took a sack, right? He cannot tell where the pass rush is coming from, and he's expecting to get hit every play.
He's got David Carr syndrome.
Yeah, he's playing scared. And when you play like that, you're not going to win. That's why Jalen Hurts is playing so much better.
Let's move on to the next disappointment of the season, and this one, it pains me to say this. It kills me because I'm such a big fan of this guy. Lamar Jackson comes out, reigning MVP, and struggles to put up points against good NFL teams, which I don't know who was saying that. I don't know who was
I
saying
don't
that
know
he
anyone
can't
who said
throw
it.
the ball.
Outside the numbers.
I can't remember who said it, but once again, Lamar Jackson is the most hyped up quarterback. You see the general consensus of him leaning the other way now. A lot of people now rip on him. But I'll tell you what, week 1, Lamar Jackson puts up fantastic stats against the Browns. I make a simple, innocent tweet that says, it's the Browns. Everyone's got to relax. He's not even throwing in the pocket. And I got eviscerated by fans. Well, now all the things I said week 1, everyone's coming around to and saying week 16, this guy was a classic running quarterback. They always put up fun stats in the beginning, and then teams figure them out. And for whatever reason, running quarterbacks struggle to throw accurately because what's the chance that someone can run a 4.44 and also somehow throw into tight windows? It is literally...
It just doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen, and there's a reason it doesn't happen. And if it did happen, and if scouts saw that it would happen, the guy would have been the first overall pick.
Mm-hmm.
The reason he wasn't is because he can't do it. It's nothing to do with hating on the person. It was more hating the hype. And if you're the reigning MVP and you're playing in a division that didn't improve, your record should be around the same, but it's not because people are figuring you out. And in year 4, it's going to be as difficult as it was year 3.
You know what's funny? His 2 best games of the year were both against Cleveland. Week 1 when he put up 38 points, and then 3 weeks ago when he put up 47 on them.
Yeah.
You know, those are his 2 best wins. Like, I mean, he's not a bad quarterback. You know, I'm not trying to say that, but he's definitely not playing at an MVP level.
No, and he never would be the most valuable player. What do you think about Lamar Jackson, Party?
I think everyone knows my stance on Lamar Jackson. He is the biggest, most overrated quarterback in the league right now. He gets hype. He's very athletic. He's probably the most athletic quarterback in the league.
I would even think Kyler Murray hasn't beat on that.
I think
It's
both are bad.
close.
Kyler Murray is
Very close.
an incredible athlete. I don't think he's a great quarterback either, but I think
Don't we have Arizona
Athletic.
as a disappointment too?
we do. We're gonna get to them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean the problem. I think Kyler can at least throw the ball better than
Better arm,
Lamar
too.
Jackson. Yeah, he has a bigger arm. He has more accuracy. He's just really tiny. Lamar, he's a bigger guy. He runs really fast. But if you find a way to bottle up that running game, they can't win. Look at New England. Is awful this year.
Yep.
They can barely put points together anymore. And they beat this Baltimore team earlier this year.
That's what I was saying. The game plan, man. He just said, "Okay, Lamar is one-dimensional. Let me take that dimension away."
That's exactly what the Titans did against him
And
in the playoffs.
And then look at the weather. It was raining. It's going to be cold, snowy, rainy in the playoffs. And you think Lamar is just going to be able to thrive throwing the ball if he makes it?
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
a big if.
And he plays Cincinnati week 17. They're most likely in.
They're going to be playing for blood, though. They'll be playing for blood. Lamar Jackson, 23 touchdowns on the season, 8 interceptions with a 64% completion percentage. I will slow everyone down before they say, oh, those are pretty good statistics. Just remember that the production he had last year was significantly better. There's a significant trend in the wrong direction for him. And he only threw for 2,600 passing yards this year. So before we start saying he's a top 10 quarterback, maybe he can go over 3,000 yards.
That's a great point. But I will say this about the Ravens. They are getting hot at the right time. And Lamar is heating up. He's playing better. And he is a game changer. And this team will only go as far as Lamar takes them. Do I think it'll take him past the first round? No.
I mean, he's playing well against Dallas, Jacksonville, the Giants.
Classic.
Like, congrats.
Pad them stats,
He beats
baby.
up on bad teams. I don't think it's a secret by now. If you want to look at him going against a good defense, he put up 170 passing yards against the Colts with no touchdowns, no interceptions. Against Pittsburgh, he put up 208 passing yards with 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Against, let's see, where's another good team on the schedule?
Chiefs.
Oh, against the Chiefs. He had 97 passing yards with a touchdown. So,
And it's not like that's a good defense.
no.
You know what I mean?
It's when you're expected to put up points, he can't do it. Congratulations, he goes out against the Jacksonville Jaguars and has 243 yards with 3 touchdowns and an interception. And congratulations against Cleveland before they were really as good as they are now. He put up a ridiculous statistical game. But since then, all downhill. Next disappointment of the season. Really no discussion needed for this Titans defense. One of the best defenses in football last year, probably the second to third worst in football this year. And they have not had an offense with a running back that put up 1,800 rushing yards or whatever Derrick Henry's doing. With an offense
1777.
with an offense that is going to put up more points than any team in franchise history, and they were expected to maybe stay on the field or actually win a game, they wouldn't be able to do it. I will say this. Titans defense in the second half of games
Trending up.
is a lot different than Titans defense in the first half of games. I can remember the game against the Pittsburgh Steelers where they just gave up 1,000,000 points in the first half. Against the Browns, they were on pace to lose like 100-0 after the first half. Against Green Bay last week, they looked terrible in the first half, get an interception, and look somewhat competent going down the line in the second half. But nothing really further there. Next disappointment, the Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray second half of the season. I'm sure a lot of you guys know Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray first half of the season were in the MVP debate. Russell Wilson was like number 1. Everyone's saying, oh, after week 3, I've never heard anything like it. People were already talking MVP. But Russell Wilson was the hands-down MVP after the third week of the season. And he kind of spirals out of, not spirals poorly, but doesn't keep up the same statistical trend that he was on in the first half of the season. And Kyler Murray, since that Hail Murray play, kind of fell off as well. And I think if you subtract that game out of Arizona's, if you just said, DeAndre Hopkins doesn't win the game, the overall temperature on the Cardinals and the overall temperature on the Bills would be significantly different right now.
Yeah, Kyler, from what I can tell, if you make Kyler throw the ball more than 35 times a game, you are probably going to win. If you get them into an absolute shootout with you, there is a very decent chance you're going to win the game.
And can I just say one thing before we even go on? Last week's interception that he had in the end zone, worst interception I've ever seen.
I don't know. Did you watch Kyle Trask yesterday?
Well,
he was bad.
Well, that's why we had him at 5, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I felt a lot better. I felt a lot better, and then I was like, ooh, Mac Jones looking pretty good.
Hey, he had a chance to throw for 75% of the touchdowns Joe Burrow did. He didn't do it.
But Kyler Murray certainly puts up stats. I mean, 400 yards against Philadelphia is nothing to sneeze at.
I just don't think Cliff Kingsbury's a good coach.
But look at last week's. Yeah, Cliff Kingsbury's awful coach, awful hire. He needs to go. I fire him right now.
I agree.
Anyway, they threw 50 times last week and put up 12 points.
They threw 50 times, and Kyler Murray had 247 yards.
No touchdowns.
That's happened a lot.
And you have
this
the
year.
best receiver in football.
He throws a lot more than he's supposed to.
He throws.
Then he should.
He throws at an incredible pace. Against Dallas, he went 9 for 24. They make him throw so much, and then it's not a sustainable way to win. But at the same time, I think it's a little disappointing when you have the first half of your season looking as good as it did. I mean, he had 2 consecutive games with 3 touchdowns. The game before that, 2 touchdowns. There's a span here where I can count it real quick. 9 touchdowns to 2 interceptions.
I think.
12 touchdowns to 2 interceptions.
I think the real issue, and you can see it, is they started losing after they were running him into the ground the first half of the season. I thought it was an awful idea. He's a small guy. Right now he has a leg injury that they said he said he's going to play in the season finale. But that's what's going to happen to a guy with his size. If you run him 10 plus times a game, he's going to get hurt. And if you look after the Buffalo game, he did not eclipse over 50 rushing yards. He did that, I think, 7 times in the first 8 games.
No, he's
Yeah, you're right. 7 times in the first 8 games.
7 times in the first 8 games, he eclipsed 50 yards rushing, and then after that, he has not hit 50 yards rushing. And it's probably because he's not as healthy as he should be. He shouldn't be running that much.
And since then, they are 2-4.
And I'm going to give you guys a list of 3 teams I think are in the worst position going into 2021. Team number 1 in the worst position is the Texans. They're about to see 0 first-round picks come in.
So hard
Their
to
team's
build.
not going to improve at all. And then the one give me win a year is about to have Trevor Lawrence. And despite what I said about that still not being a great team and still being a terrible team, the difference of having a once-in-a-decade prospect versus having Gardner Minshew over center certainly makes them more of a problem. The Colts are really good. I fully expect the Colts next year to land Carson Wentz.
That's a good.
I think it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, with Frank Reich.
I think the Texans are going to be in big trouble when your team doesn't improve and
everyone else gets
and the
better.
2 teams in your division get better. And if the Titans stay at a 10-6 or 11-5 pace, that's still not a fun team to have in your division. The second team that I think is trending in the wrong direction is the Patriots. You have no quarterback on this roster right now with a mid-draft pick, which we did go over our 5 quarterbacks that we like in the draft. That didn't even include Fields, who I'm sure other people are a lot higher on than me. But after you watch Dwayne Haskins get cut, maybe some people are going to start thinking about Ohio State quarterbacks. But I think in that division, you're going to have the Jets, who are going to be significantly better than last year.
Fingers crossed.
Dolphins. The Dolphins are probably going to be on every person's preseason top 10 rank, with some people slipping him in at top 5 when they're going to have a 4th overall pick coming their way. And then obviously Buffalo Bills, who I think are going to be a force to be reckoned with for the next 5 years. What do you think about that, Mr. Party?
I think that the Pats are in a very tough situation. I personally don't want them to take a quarterback in the first round. I want them to take him in the middle rounds like they have always done.
But then who's your starting quarterback next year?
Figure it out.
That's what you did this year.
The Pats defense is going to get like 7 starters back. They had 8 players opt out, 7 of which were defensive starters or big time rotation guys. Almost all of our linebackers opted out. We had 1 linebacker playing all year. We moved Chase Winovich, a defensive end, to middle linebacker at some points this year.
Love it.
Like their defense was abysmal because they didn't have enough personnel. Now, offensive side, I love the running game. Offensive line is still top 10 in the league. Receivers, garbage besides Jacoby Myers. They need to find, if the Titans somehow break away from Corey Davis, I want them to pay him whatever he wants to come to New England. Quarterback, they still have Jarrett Stidham.
Bad.
If he has come in, hasn't looked the best, hasn't looked the absolute worst.
Handed off the ball.
Started a game, right?
No.
I don't believe he's ever started. No.
No, because even the game that Cam Newton missed,
Brian Hoyer started.
Brian Hoyer.
But he did come in and play okay.
He handed the ball off.
But I think that speaks volumes. You're telling me you're going to start Brian Hoyer over Jarrett Stidham?
It's fine.
It's not even like it was Stidham's rookie
Yeah.
year.
And I'm not saying that. And I'm saying you can take a quarterback in the 2nd, 3rd round and he could start. I just don't want them to overdraft a quarterback because they feel like they have to.
So what do you want them to do with the? I guess they'd have like the 16th pick.
I think it's 15 or 16 right now. I'd go either defense or a skill position.
It's just best player on the board.
If a Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle,
Okay.
any of the top flight receivers fall to 15 or 16 wherever they are,
Waddle will be there.
I think you immediately snag.
I think Smith has a better chance to be there than Waddle.
I think
I don't think people are going to be too thrilled with getting a guy who's coming off a pretty major injury when his number one
Didn't
thing
he
is.
it was just a high ankle sprain. And
No,
then-
he fractured his ankle. Or broke it. Like, he broke his ankle.
oh, that's
There's
not,
a piece
that's
of
not
his
that
ankle.
bad.
Well, when you're a guy that's expected to run a 4.3 and you have a broken ankle, it's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. It would come combine time, and it'll
Depends
be a
on
lot.
how it heals, right?
Yeah.
If
So-
it was a clean fracture, and if it heals nice, no issue.
So now here's the next team I think is really struggling, and they're going to look worse. Now, right now, everyone thinks they're trending upwards, and I'm going to put a stop to it. I think the Cardinals
We all are.
are in big trouble. This year, I was super high on them. I will admit that.
You had them
But
as your Super
I had him
Bowl
as a
pick
Super
earlier.
Bowl pick. But what I'm going to come out now and say is when you add the best receiver in football and your offense doesn't take that next step, there's something significantly wrong with your team.
We were just talking about this with Stephon Diggs, right? Like
Big step.
Big step for Josh Allen and
Gigantic
the entire team.
Yep.
You know, like the Bills are playing worse defense than last year, but their offense is so much better that it doesn't even matter. Right? I expected DeAndre Hopkins to have a similar kind of effect with Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals.
And it's mostly because Cliff Kingsbury is a garbage coach. He didn't succeed in the college level. He's not going to succeed in the NFL level. He needs to get out of there as quick as possible for the Cardinals to have any chance at success with Kyler Murray.
Now, here's the thing about the Cardinals, right? They're second in the league with yards. They have 403 points, and they gave up 349 points. So their plus minus is not tremendous. It's pretty on pace for a 500 team. Their losses this year. Let me go over who they lost to. Of these 7 losses: Lions, Panthers, Dolphins, Seahawks, Patriots, Rams, and the 49ers. You're talking. There's 3 teams in there that I think fired their head coach. Like, you're well, 2 teams. Okay, so you have 2 teams that fired their head coach that you lost to. I mean, these are bad losses, and this team amounts bad losses. They go out and get a miracle win against the Bills, or else they would be below 500 on the season. And then you find a way to lose to the 49ers with C.J. Beathard as their quarterback. These are very disappointing losses. So I think that the team that was supposed to take this giant step up, you have the first overall pick going into a second year. You just paired him up with the best wide receiver in football. You still have Larry Fitzgerald. You have, weapons all over the place, and your defense wasn't that bad. Then you go into this year and you have an 8-7 record when you got to play against the Giants division, where I think they swept everyone in that division. They swept the entire, NFC East. So if you have a harder schedule, your record's going to be significantly worse. And last team that's in my disappointment, well, not disappointment, but trending in the wrong direction is the Seattle Seahawks. No first-round pick for the next 2 years. If you're not going to win this year, then your team's only trending the wrong direction. We saw the same thing get done by the Chicago Bears. And I said when the Chicago Bears did it, that if you don't win now, you're in trouble tomorrow. And that's the same exact situation they're in. If they don't win now, there's no free prospect that you're going to be able to bring in. You're still going to have to pay Jamal Adams. You're still going to have to pay the guys that are good. And there's no cheap talent coming in to fix your holes like all 31 other NFL teams have. I think they're in big trouble. I don't think they're in big trouble this year, but when you head into 2021, that roster is inarguably going to be in worse shape than they would be without the Jamal Adams trade.
So remember how we were talking about how Seattle's current roster has really been built from 1 or 2 just great drafts, right? And they are still, I guess, operating with that mindset. That's why they're so willing to give away first-round picks. They gave away one for Percy Harvin. They gave away one for Jimmy Graham, right? And that was years ago. And so they're still doing it now because they expect themselves to be able to draft guys in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th rounds that are going to become starters for them. Issue is, since those 2 big drafts, they haven't had many success in the later rounds. that defense right now seems to be held together by duct tape. They're signing cast-offs and aging guys from other teams. I agree with you because they're paying Russell Wilson so much money, right? And they're going to have to pay their receivers too.
And they're also going to make Jamal Adams the highest paid safety.
Yeah,
at a position that's not valued anywhere.
Nope.
What other team pays a safety and gets great production out of it? The Titans went out and paid Kevin Byard.
Charles Woodson. If Jamal Adams was Charles Woodson, I'd say okay, maybe, because he impacts the game so much.
But you saw what Kevin Byard did, and I know it's free safety versus strong safety, but Kevin Byard was literally useless before Adoree Jackson came back. Kevin Byard had 0 interceptions. He was like first top 10 in NFL in interceptions every year of his career. Then he goes a year without Adoree Jackson and with Jonathan Joseph on the other side of Malcolm Butler, and he looks like one of the worst safeties in football. The value at that position doesn't come with just your overall talent.
So dependent
you rely
on your other talent, the people around you, exactly.
So when you go out and pay a guy like this, yeah, he's going to give you 4 or 5 sacks out of the safety position that a regular safety wouldn't give you, but he's not going to be a guy that can lock down the number 1 receiver. He's going to make plays that an average safety would with an extra 6 sacks, which if that's worth 2 first-round picks and overpaying for that position value, then have fun with him. But right now, I just don't see the value in that position like Seattle did when they made that trade. And really now you're stuck with Jamal Adams because what are you gonna do? You're gonna let him go after giving up 2 first-round picks in 2 years? That would be insane.
Kind of just like Rams had to pay Jalen Ramsey, and the Rams are not exactly in a good position either.
So let's get to the bets. Last week, I think we pushed on one, we hit on the other, and we missed our best bet or upset pick of the week. I'm going to throw it to Brian first with the under-over because, well, I guess this game relies on 2 of the fandoms here.
Oh, yeah. For the over-under this week, we're going for Jets-Patriots over-under 39.5. Going for the over here. The Jets are playing some inspired ball. Don't know where it came from. Don't know why it happened. But it's happening. I think this will be a good game. I expect Sam Darnold to have the best... I expect Ty Johnson to have the best game of his career. You got any thoughts on this, Pat? You think you guys can put up any points against the Jets?
The Pats have scored 1 touchdown in the last 3 games, so
they're gonna put up 3 against the Jets.
That's very scary. But I mean, you never see an over/under.
I've never seen one
under 40.
I've never seen one
39.5. That's so low.
You kind of just have to take it.
It's so little points that if a team scores in the first quarter, you know how like when you're on the online apps, they have the moving lines. If a team scores in the first quarter, it's going to go back up to 45.
Exactly.
So you're really just kind of hoping for points. I like this game a lot too because Sam Darnold has a turnover problem. Any team that's going to start inside, on the other team's side of the field is going to put up points. I just don't see how you don't get over 39.5. And if you do go under 39.5, I think it's more shocking than anything.
Correct.
Absolutely.
It wouldn't be a good play to take the under at all. So if it's a bad play to take the under.
I don't expect the Jets to get shut out like they did against Miami, 24-0. The team. This is a different team.
So next game, the upset pick of the week, Seattle versus San Francisco. Seattle's literally playing for nothing. They're not getting the first round bye. I don't put a value on, if you're the 2nd or 3rd seed. I don't think teams really care. Because at the end of the day, you win your first game, you still have home field on the second game, whether you're 2nd or 3rd. And then no matter what, you're pretty much playing whoever the 1st seed is. So I don't see them using a lot of their starters. I don't see them going very deep in their playbook. And San Francisco... they're playing for a lot of pride. You're getting San Francisco at plus 245. I think this is just a good overall bet. San Francisco, before anyone says, they're trying to lose for a better draft position. Like we said earlier in the show, they just beat Arizona. They're playing because they want to play. And I like the value at plus 245. Now I'm going to throw it over to Pat for our spread game of the week.
Spread game of the week is
The Chargers minus 3.5 against the Kansas City Chiefs backups. We really are just thinking that if the Chargers don't win this game, it's an embarrassment.
Definitely. I fire
Anthony Lynn
before
should
the
get
game's
fired
over. Before it hits
if they
triple
lose this
zeros,
game.
if they or quad zeros, if they're losing this game, gone.
I think that he needs to get fired if they lose this game. I think this should be a very nice tune-up game for the end of the season to see what Herbert really has. Herbert came in against the Chiefs in his first game.
I was going to say that.
He did well. Now, they didn't plan for him, but he still played well. Now, if he can bring that up again this week, he's got the weapons on the outside. He will be able to cover this spread.
You see, the thing is, with the Chiefs, there are times this season where they struggle on offense. It's weird, right? Like, they can't move the ball, and then it's the fourth quarter, and then just flinging it downfield, right? And it looks so easy. But I think that's mainly because Patrick Mahomes can do Patrick Mahomes things. Chad Henne can't. So if this offense even struggled a little with Patty Mahomes, it's not going to be run smoothly with Chad Henne.
No, and also the other thing is you're Kansas City literally playing for nothing. Los Angeles gave them a good run for their money when they were playing for everything.
And Anthony Lynn could be coaching for his job.
And not to mention, you're probably not gonna have Kenny Clark on the field. You're not gonna have Patty Mahomes. I don't think Tyreek Hill's gonna.
Kenny Clark is on.
Oh, who's their D tackle?
Frank Clark.
Frank Clark. You're not gonna have Frank Clark on the field.
Oh, their D tackle's Chris Jones. Their end is Frank Clark.
But they're seriously going to be not the Kansas City Chiefs. The fact that the spread is at 3.5 because the odds makers look at it knowing that anyone, is going to just take Kansas City at a plus. So they give you a garbage plus. And it's not going to be the same Kansas City team, while it will still be the same Chargers team. And that I think it was like week 2 or 3 rematch. I think it was week 2.
It was
week 2 rematch. But that's the end of the show. Next week we're going to have a lot of playoff predictions. We're going to know a lot more. I think we'll get to talk a little Titans playoffs if nothing goes terribly wrong. And we're going to give you our Super Bowl picks next week. I think it's going to be a pretty easy one because of the way Green Bay Packers looked last week on Sunday night. Take care and have a great New Year.